My sister showed up out of nowhere, and ever since, my marriage has been crumbling piece by piece. I watched the woman I love slip away, and the betrayal ran deeper than I imagined. What I uncovered between them. It shattered everything. But I didn't go down quietly. Before continue, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's free and only way to support us. Thank you. My name is Marcus, I'm 32 years old, and I used to think I had a pretty solid life. I had a stable job in digital marketing, a decent apartment in the quiet part of the city, and a wife who used to call me her best friend. That was my world, quiet, reliable, simple. But everything I thought I knew started to crack the day my sister walked back into my life. It had been years since I last saw Lila. She was 4 years younger than me, and the kind of person who could disappear from your life like a puff of smoke, dramatic entrances and even more dramatic exits. We didn't have a bad relationship or anything. We just weren't close. She ran off when she turned 18, chasing dreams and freedom. No calls, no letters, no birthday messages. Nothing. Just gone. So when she showed up at my doorstep unannounced, suitcase in one hand and a weird smile on her face, I was stunned. Jenna, my wife, opened the door before I could even react. She had no idea who Lila was, but they clicked instantly. Like too instantly. I remember just standing there like a background character while the two of them laughed and talked like they'd known each other in a past life. I should have felt relieved to have my sister back. I should have smiled, hugged her, welcomed her in. And I did all that. On the outside. But something deep inside me didn't sit right. She looked different. Not just older. Sharper. Colder, maybe? Her eyes didn't match her voice. They were always scanning, calculating. Like she was playing a game, and I didn't know the rules yet. She said she needed a place to crash, just for a few days. Said things hadn't worked out wherever she was. Gave me one of those vague stories full of missing pieces, but I didn't press. Family's family, right? Big mistake. At first, it was nice. She helped with the dishes. She was polite, friendly. Always dressed like she had somewhere important to go, even when she didn't. Jenna seemed to really like her. That was a relief, until it wasn't. I remember this one night, just a couple days after Lila moved in. We were all having dinner. Jenna made her famous lemon basil pasta, and we were laughing about something dumb I said. I don't even remember the joke, but I remember how Lila laughed. Not normal laughing. It was the kind where someone's laughing more at the person than the joke. She tilted her head, stared right at me, and laughed like I was a child trying to be funny. And then she looked at Jenna, and Jenna laughed too, not with me, but with her. I swallowed it, told myself I was being dramatic. But that was the first time I felt it, that subtle shift. Like a spotlight turning away from me and landing on someone else. My own wife and my sister, bonding over something I wasn't part of. It was just dinner. But that's how it starts, right? Tiny moments, quiet glances, inside jokes that don't include you. And then one day, you look around your own house and you're the outsider. At first, I told myself it was all in my head. You know how the mind works, give it one weird moment and it spins a whole movie. And I was really trying not to be that guy, the jealous, paranoid husband who thinks two women laughing in the kitchen means betrayal. But the problem is, when your gut and your brain start arguing, the rest of your life turns into static. That's how it felt with Jenna and Lila. It started with whispers. Literally. I'd walk into the living room, and suddenly, silence. Like someone hit pause. The way they'd glance at me, then at each other. That half second of awkward eye contact they tried to hide behind fake smiles. It wasn't normal. One night, I came back from the gym. Sweaty, sore, craving nothing but a shower and Jenna's attention. Instead, I found the two of them curled up on the couch, watching one of those emotional K-dramas Jenna used to make fun of. They were under the same blanket, eating popcorn like teenage girls at a sleepover. I stood there for a second too long, waiting for someone to invite me in, but no one did. Lila said something I didn't catch. Jenna laughed. I asked what was funny. Jenna just said, "Oh, nothing important." And that's when I felt it again. That weird invisible wall forming right in front of me. Like there was a version of my life happening. But I wasn't in it. At dinner, things got weirder. Lila started making suggestions like she owned the place. She told Jenna she should try dressing differently, changing her hairstyle. "You'd look so good with curtain bangs," she said once, twirling her fork like she was casually tossing hand grenades at my marriage. Jenna actually listened. She started changing. Subtle things at first, new makeup, different clothes, new perfume. And don't get me wrong, my wife is gorgeous, but now it was like she was dressing for someone else. Not for herself. Not even for me. Lila, on the other hand, looked like she stepped out of a fashion blog every single morning. Full makeup at 8 a.m. to make coffee. Who does that? She wasn't just visiting anymore. She was performing. But I kept swallowing it. Like a fool. Because no matter how many warning signs lit up in my face, I didn't want to believe that the two people closest to me were becoming something I didn't recognize. Or worse. Something I wasn't part of. Then came the night I couldn't unsee. I woke up thirsty at around 2:30 a.m. headed to the kitchen, dragging my feet, trying not to stub a toe. And there they were. Jenna and Lila. In the kitchen. In the dark. Whispering. I stopped in the hallway just far enough not to be seen. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. Lila said something like, "He'll never get it." Jenna nodded. Said, "He's not paying attention." Then they laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a friendly laugh. It was wicked. The kind of laugh that makes your skin crawl, like you just walked into a room you weren't supposed to see. I stood there, frozen. Holding an empty glass. Feeling more invisible than I'd ever felt in my life. They didn't see me. I went back to bed without water. Thirsty and confused. But more than anything, hollow. Like I was slowly being erased. One whisper at a time. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from sleeping next to someone who's no longer really there. And that's what it became, night after night. Jenna started going to bed earlier than me. At first, I thought she was just tired. Maybe work stress. She's a graphic designer, tight deadlines, annoying clients, late-night revisions. I tried to be supportive. I offered foot massages. I even cooked more often, hoping she'd notice. She noticed. But not in the way I wanted. She'd thank me with a quick smile, say you didn't have to, then eat like the food was background noise. We stopped talking at dinner. And when we did talk, it felt like small talk you make with someone at a bus stop. Cold, polite, distant. The weirdest part? Lila wasn't distant. She talked more than ever. To me. To Jenna. To herself, sometimes. She walked around the house like she was in some indie sitcom. Dancing to music in her AirPods, making smoothies that somehow involved 7 different powders, giving unsolicited advice like she was some self-help guru from YouTube. And Jenna loved it. She started copying her. Suddenly she was into meditation. Bullet journaling. Crystal water bottles. Lila would say something like, "I manifest peace by detaching from the past," and Jenna would nod like it was gospel. And me? I became background noise. One morning I tried to kiss Jenna goodbye before work, just like I always had. She turned her cheek instead. Said she was breaking out and didn't want makeup to smudge. Cute excuse, right? So I watched as she let Lila kiss her full on the cheek, lipstick and all, 5 minutes later while giggling over their protein pancakes. It hit me like a silent slap. And here's the thing, I didn't think they were having an affair. Not yet. But emotionally? Oh yeah. I was already being replaced. Bit by bit. Smirk by smirk. By my own sister. I tried to talk to Jenna. I asked her what was going on, if she was okay. If I had done something wrong. She shrugged. Said I was being too intense lately. Too intense? Since when does caring about your marriage count as intense? It was like I had become this old pair of jeans she didn't want to throw away, but also didn't want to wear. Comfortable. Familiar. Forgotten. And Lila? She wasn't just in the house. She was in every room of our marriage. One night, I had a dream that I walked into my bedroom and both of them were sitting on the bed, talking. When I tried to speak, my voice wouldn't come out. I waved, I screamed silently, but they just smiled like I wasn't there. I woke up in a cold sweat. And for a second, I wasn't even sure it was a dream. That's how blurry the line had become. It's a strange thing, watching your house transform into a place that no longer feels like yours. Same furniture. Same walls. Same fridge magnet. But none of it feels like home anymore. Lila was supposed to be a guest. That was the deal. A few days, maybe a week, until she figured things out. That week turned into 3 months. 3 months of her slowly infecting our routines like mold in a closed jar. Quiet. Creeping. Hard to spot until you can't ignore the smell anymore. And Jenna? She didn't mind at all. If anything, she acted like this was the arrangement she'd always wanted. Like Lila was the missing puzzle piece she'd been waiting for, and I was the extra bit that didn't fit. It got worse after Jenna suggested we redecorate. By we, she meant me moving stuff into storage so Lila could feel more at home. My favorite reading chair? Gone. The framed photo of our honeymoon in Bali? Taken down and replaced with a weird black and white shot of a tree, Lila said, spoke to her soul. I didn't even argue anymore. I just nodded and lifted things. I felt like a tenant with no lease. One day, I came home early from work. I had a splitting headache and just wanted some peace. But as soon as I stepped in, I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. Jenna and Lila were sitting on the floor, candles everywhere, holding crystals and chanting softly like they were summoning the spirit of Gwyneth Paltrow. I stood there with my work bag, blinking, unsure whether to laugh or back away slowly. Lila opened her eyes first. Smiled. Said I had interrupted the energy flow. Then Jenna got annoyed. Not at Lila. At me. She actually asked if I could go sit in the bedroom until they were done clearing the aura. I didn't move, just stared at them. Two women sitting in a living room filled with $60 candles, waving sage around like they were preparing a spiritual exorcism of me. I realized in that moment that I wasn't even the villain in their story. I was the unwanted ghost. Still haunting a house where no one wanted me anymore. Even at night, when I tried to sleep, I could hear them laughing behind closed doors. Sometimes it was soft, like secret. Sometimes it was loud, like celebration. Either way, I wasn't invited. Once, I opened the bedroom door around midnight, hoping Jenna had finished her tea ritual with Lila and would come to bed. The bed was made. Cold. Untouched. She had slept in the guest room. With Lila. When I asked about it the next morning, Jenna said I was being paranoid. Said they were just talking and fell asleep watching Netflix. Right. Because Netflix puts two grown women under the same blanket, spooning. I'm not stupid. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not blind. And yet, I still didn't leave. Why? Because I kept hoping. Hoping that maybe it was just a phase. That Jenna would wake up one day, look at me, and remember what we had. But she never did. If anything, she looked at me less and less. And when she did look, it was with pity. The same look you give a stray dog too proud to realize it's not wanted anymore. That's when I knew. Something had to change. Or I'd disappear completely. There's a type of pain that doesn't scream. It just lingers. Like when you accidentally cut yourself on paper and forget about it, until you touch it again. That's what my days felt like. Tiny cuts in the same place over and over again. Jenna had become a different person. And Lila? She was always watching me. Not in an obvious way. No. That would have been too easy. It was in the background. While I was washing dishes. Reading a book. Changing a light bulb. I'd catch her staring. Not smiling. Not blinking. Just watching. She'd tilt her head, study me like I was some sad animal on a documentary. And then, as if nothing had happened, she'd go back to her usual bubbly routine. Dancing to music, making smoothies, telling Jenna what color aura she thought she had that day. Apparently, mine was mud brown. Subtle dig, right? Every day I felt smaller. One morning, Jenna made pancakes. She used to make them for me every Sunday. It was our little tradition. Except this time, they weren't for me. I woke up to laughter and the smell of syrup. Went downstairs and found the table already set, for two. Lila and Jenna, eating. Laughing. I stood there like I was in someone else's house. Jenna looked up, surprised. Oh, you're up. Like I wasn't supposed to be. She didn't even offer me a plate. I didn't ask. I just poured myself a glass of water, drank it in silence, and walked back upstairs. I knew I was losing her. But to my sister? That part still didn't compute. They weren't kissing. They weren't holding hands. But they didn't need to. The emotional intimacy they shared was louder than any kiss could be. I'd try to get Jenna alone, but somehow Lila was always around. Like she had a radar for private moments. Once, I planned a surprise dinner. Booked a nice rooftop spot. Lit candles. Wrote a little note telling Jenna how much I missed us. She didn't show. Called 15 minutes after the reservation. Said she had forgotten, and was doing yoga with Lila. Yoga. On a Friday night. I almost laughed, but instead, I just stared at the untouched table, the two empty wine glasses, and the couple next to me celebrating their anniversary like I used to. That night, I came home late. The house was dark. Quiet. I opened the bedroom door. Empty. Walked to the guest room. Jenna and Lila were asleep. Same bed. Same blanket. No space between them. That was the first night I slept in my car. Not because I had to. But because I couldn't take being invisible anymore. I stared at the ceiling through the sunroof, wondering if I was being dramatic. wondering if maybe I was the problem. Then I remembered something. A tiny moment. 2 weeks earlier, I had been doing laundry. Lila left her hoodie in the basket. When I picked it up, something fell out of the pocket. A note. A handwritten note. It said, "He's clueless. Just a little longer." I didn't tell anyone I saw it. Didn't ask questions. But that was the moment I stopped hoping. And started watching. I started paying attention. Not to be dramatic. Not to be petty. Just because. Something inside me clicked. When someone is trying to erase you from your own life, the least you can do is notice the brushstrokes. So I watched. I started coming home early without telling them. Quietly. No keys jingling. No heavy footstep. Just silence to see what I was walking into. And every time, I caught some version of the same scene, Jenna and Lila. Talking. Whispering. Sometimes doing nothing at all but sitting on the couch like statues. Still. Calm. Like a storm that already happened. Or one that hadn't yet. I stopped engaging. I stopped asking Jenna how her day was. Stopped making dinner for 3. Stopped trying to win back something that was already halfway out the door. Instead, I started gathering pieces. There was one day I'll never forget. It was a Saturday. I was supposed to be out all afternoon. Lila knew I had a client meeting. But it got cancelled. So I came back home quietly, parked a block away, and walked in through the back door. And what I heard changed everything. Jenna and Lila were in the kitchen. Not whispering this time. Talking. Openly. Jenna was upset. Said she felt guilty. Said she didn't want to hurt me. Lila laughed, not a happy laugh. A laugh that sounded like it belonged to someone who had just won. She said something like, "You're not hurting him. He's already gone. He just doesn't know it yet." I stood there, just around the corner, holding my breath so hard my chest ached. And then, Jenna didn't defend me. She didn't even hesitate. She just said, "I know. I think I just needed to hear it out loud." I don't remember walking away. I don't remember driving. I don't even remember what I did the rest of that day. But something inside me cracked. Quietly, like glass under a rug. That night I slept in the guest room, not theirs. The little one downstairs that had nothing but an old futon and a broken lamp. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, and finally admitted it to myself. I had lost her. Not to another man. To my sister. And somehow that made it worse. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal by 2 people who had once claimed to love me. The next morning, everything felt too normal, too quiet. They were both in the kitchen, laughing over pancakes again, like nothing had happened. Jenna looked at me and asked if I wanted some. I said no. But I didn't look at her. Couldn't. Because now I knew the truth. And the scariest part? They didn't know I knew. That became my advantage. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't confused. I wasn't doubting myself. I wasn't hoping. I was planning. I didn't know what exactly yet. But something inside me had changed. And I wasn't going to let this story end with me quietly fading away. Not anymore. They thought I was broken. And I'll admit it, I looked the part. I stopped shaving. Wore the same hoodie 3 days in a row. Ate cereal for dinner. Stayed up late watching dumb cooking shows on mute. Let them believe I was falling apart. But inside? I was wide awake. I'd learned something important. When people think you're down, they stop hiding. They relax. They get comfortable. That's when they show you who they really are. And Lila? She got very comfortable. She started walking around like she owned the place. She'd open my mail. Move things around. She even moved into our bedroom. Just casually, as if it made sense. Jenna slept in the guest room now. Alone, she said. But I didn't ask. I didn't need to. I just nodded. Said okay a lot. Smiled when I needed to. Meanwhile, I started collecting things. Not evidence, no, this wasn't some movie courtroom showdown. I wasn't trying to expose them to the world. I just wanted to understand. So I went through Jenna's old journals. Yeah, I know. Not proud. But desperate people do desperate things. What I found confirmed everything. In her handwriting, soft, messy, emotional, she wrote about feeling trapped. About how someone came back into her life and reminded her what it felt like to be alive. She never mentioned Lila by name. But it wasn't hard to connect the dots. Meanwhile, I watched Lila. She never let her guard down completely. But she underestimated me. Once, she left her laptop open on the couch while she went to shower. I waited, heart pounding. Then opened her browser history. Let's just say the things she searched weren't exactly innocent. She had looked up things like how to legally remove someone from a lease without their consent and emotional detachment tactics for manipulation. Not exactly things you Google if you're just crashing at your brother's place. I took pictures of it all. Not to blackmail her, I didn't care about revenge at this point. I just needed to see it, the proof that I wasn't crazy. That everything I'd felt in my gut for months was real. The next day, I made breakfast. For all three of us. Pancake. The good kind, with chocolate chips and a side of fresh berries. Jenna looked surprised. Lila? Suspicious. I smiled. Said I was just trying to bring us all together again. They bought it. We sat and ate in silence for a bit. Jenna complimented the pancake. Lila smiled with her mouth but not her eyes. I nodded. Told them I was planning a weekend away. Just the three of us. They hesitated. I insisted. Said it'd be nice to disconnect. A little cabin up north. No distractions. Just nature, peace, and space to talk. They agreed. And that's when I knew. This story was about to change. Because if they wanted to erase me quietly, they were about to learn just how loud I could be when I stopped playing along. We drove up on a Friday. 3 hours in the car. Quiet roads, soft music, a trunk full of snacks and silence. Jenna sat in the front seat. Lila sat behind me. Every now and then, I'd glance at the rearview mirror and catch her watching me. Not out of concern, no, her look was curious, like a chess player wondering when you'd finally tip your king over. I didn't blink. The cabin was beautiful. Old wood, soft lighting, a little lake behind the trees. The kind of place you'd expect in a romance novel, not a marriage falling apart one awkward breakfast at a time. As soon as we got inside, Jenna sighed and said it was exactly what she needed. Lila wandered the rooms like she was measuring them for future ownership. I kept smiling. We had dinner that night on the deck. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, a bottle of red wine I had saved for our anniversary, the one we never celebrated this year. They talked about constellations. I talked about old memories. They didn't listen. But I didn't mind. Because this time, I wasn't trying to be heard. I was watching. Waiting. After dinner, Jenna went inside to grab her sweater. Lila stayed behind. Just me and her. Alone. Finally. She looked at me and tilted her head. Said I looked calm. I said I was. She smiled. Said it almost made her nervous. I looked right at her and said, "Good." The silence that followed was heavy. She asked if I was mad. If I had something to say. I said no. Not yet. She squinted at me, almost amused. Like she was trying to solve a riddle she thought she already knew the answer to. Then Jenna came back out and the moment passed. But I saw it. That flicker. That little crack in Lila's performance. She didn't know what I was planning. And that scared her. The next day it rained. We stayed in, played board games, made pancakes again. I swear, it was becoming some kind of curse. Jenna laughed more than usual. Lila less. By evening, the tension was so thick you could chew it. That night, I finally did it. I asked them both to sit down. By the fireplace. Jenna looked confused. Lila looked amused. I pulled out a small box. Placed it on the table between us. Inside was the note I found in Lila's hoodie. The screenshots from her laptop. A copy of Jenna's journal entry. No words. Just the truth. Laid out. Plain and cold. The room went still. Jenna went pale. Lila. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned back in her chair like this was the scene she'd been waiting for. I didn't yell. Didn't ask questions. I just said one thing. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to end the guessing. And then I got up. Packed my bag. They didn't follow. Not yet. But the game was over. And they knew it. Next morning, I woke up early. Didn't even need an alarm. My body had one built in by now, the kind that goes off when your life's on fire. I made coffee. Sat on the cabin porch. Watched the mist roll over the lake like a ghost that didn't want to leave. Behind me, the house was silent. Until it wasn't. I heard movement upstairs. Whispers. Footstep. Then silence again. Eventually, Jenna stepped out onto the porch. Hair messy. Eyes tired. No makeup. Just her. She sat across from me. Didn't say anything right away. Just stared at the coffee in my hands like it might give her courage. Finally, she spoke. Said she didn't know where to start. I told her she didn't have to. Because I already knew how it ended. She looked like she might cry. But she didn't. Instead, she said, it wasn't supposed to go this far. That's the kind of sentence that means everything. And nothing. I asked her if she loved her. Lila. I nodded. But the feeling of fading in a relationship that once felt like sunlight. That part. I got. She looked down. Didn't answer. Didn't have to. Then I asked if she ever loved me. That one hurt more. She said she did. Said she probably still did. But she also said she felt more seen, more alive, more herself when she was around Lila. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Or break something. But instead, I just sipped my coffee. Because the worst part? I understood. Not the betrayal. Not the deception. Lila didn't come outside. She stayed upstairs. Didn't apologize. Didn't explain. She didn't need to. Because her silence was the loudest thing in that cabin. I told Jenna I'd be leaving by noon. Not in anger. Not to make her feel guilty. Just to end the story before it got any uglier. She didn't stop me. She just nodded, like she had known this ending was coming long before I ever did. I packed my things. Said goodbye to the cabin. Didn't look back upstairs. Didn't say goodbye to Lila. Some people don't deserve goodbyes. Just absence. As I drove away, the rain started again. Like even the sky wanted to rinse the whole thing clean. But I didn't feel clean. I felt like someone who had just escaped a burning building. With nothing in his hands. And yet, I wasn't empty. Because now I knew the truth. And the truth, even when it's sharp, is lighter than lies. It's been 4 months since that cabin weekend. 4 months of silence. No calls. No texts. No surprise knocks at the door. And thank God for that. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of the city. Nothing fancy. Just peace and quiet and no one watching me from across the room with judgment disguised as concern. I bought a new coffee mug. I grow herbs on my windowsill now. Basil and mint. Lila used to say I had no personality, so I figured I'd grow one. Jenna? I don't know what she's doing. And I don't ask. Some things are better left ungoogled. I unfollowed her on every platform. Erased the photos. Deleted her contact. Not out of spite, out of survival. Because sometimes healing isn't about forgiving. Sometimes it's about forgetting just enough to stop bleeding. I never heard from Lila again. No surprise there. I don't think she ever looked back. But that's fine. Because here's the twist in all this. I'm okay. Actually, more than okay. I'm free. For a while, I thought I'd never recover. That the betrayal, by both my wife and my sister, would live in me like a splinter under skin. Always sore. Always there. But you know what happens when you stop trying to fix the people who broke you? You finally have space to fix yourself. I started therapy. Not the dramatic, lay on the couch and cry for an hour kind, just real talk with someone who doesn't lie to me or laugh behind my back. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed too. Real laugh. Not the polite kind. Not the forced, I'm okay kind. The kind that makes your stomach hurt a little. I even went on a date last week. She asked me what my biggest fear was. And without thinking, I said, letting someone back in who never deserved the door to begin with. She laughed. Then asked if I always answered questions like I was writing a dramatic novel. I told her no. Just this chapter. The story's not over. But that part? That twisted, suffocating, slow fade betrayal? That chapter is closed. For good. And if there's anything I'd tell the version of me from 6 months ago, the version sitting in that house, questioning his worth, his mind, his place in the world, it would be this. Sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is exactly what needed to happen. Because it doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. And what you do after that. That's the real story. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's free and only way to support us. Thank you.